Hi, good afternoon. My name is Joanne Soper-Cook, and today I'm going to explain to you why, when Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949, the Newfoundland Mi'kmaq did not. A recent CBC article talked about the 75th anniversary of Confederation, 75 years since Newfoundland joined Canada. But some of the Mi'kmaq elders who were interviewed for the piece said they wouldn't bother celebrating. For them, there's nothing to celebrate. In 1949, Newfoundland voted by a narrow margin to join Canada. The proposed amalgamation of the Newfoundland nation with Canada did not include the Mi'kmaq people. The Mi'kmaq were not Indian enough to be considered truly Indigenous. So the white settler population joined Canada, but the Mi'kmaq did not. They weren't even invited. According to noted philosopher and anti-colonialism theorist Frantz Fanon, colonialism is exploitative, dehumanizing, and mainly concerned with domination and oppression. We can see this at play during most settler-Indigenous interaction throughout Canadian history. Prior to the Indian Act of 1876, relations between Indigenous people and white settler populations were cordial, even congenial. However, the establishment of the Indian Act attempted to generalize a vast and varied population of people and assimilate them into non-Indigenous society. It forbade First Nations peoples and communities from expressing their identities through governance and culture. Canada's legacy of residential schools is just one of the many ways in which Indigenous people were subjected to the oppression of colonialism. This resulted in almost total cultural genocide. But Newfoundland and Labrador had no residential schools. Therefore, for the Newfoundland Mi'kmaq, this cultural genocide was accomplished in other ways, most notably by forced enfranchisement during the process of Confederation with Canada in 1948 to 1949. The Indian Act presumed that once the Mi'kmaq could be Christianized and civilized, they would voluntarily embrace enfranchisement. But by 1949, almost no Mi'kmaq had volunteered. Why officials assumed Newfoundland's Mi'kmaq population would readily embrace this forced enfranchisement is not clear. Newfoundland's Confederation with Canada in 1949 therefore included only descendants of the white settler population and not the Mi'kmaq people or any of the other First Nations in Newfoundland and Labrador. According to then Premier Joey Smallwood, there were no Indians in Newfoundland or Labrador. Even worse, officials argued that because of Mi'kmaq contact with white colonial society and their theoretical right to vote, they could not even be considered Indians under the Indian Act. So why would the Indigenous peoples of Newfoundland and Labrador want to celebrate the province's union with Canada? It had nothing to do with them. At no time were they consulted or even thought about beyond the cursory judgment of their having been de-Indianized by prolonged contact with white settler populations. But it wasn't just the Mi'kmaq who were left out of the Confederation process. The Innu and Inuit people weren't consulted either. The Inuit, for their part, were caught between three nations: Newfoundland, the Inuit Nation, and Canada. Where did they belong? According to the Indian Act, their lands were considered terra nullius, land belonging to no one. They were neither Christian nor native, and their continued trade with white settler populations meant that they, like the Mi'kmaq, were no longer truly Indian. All of this rhetoric was merely another way to subjugate, ignore, oppress, and denigrate them. They, like the Mi'kmaq, were not even considered when it came to Confederation with Canada. Because their lands belonged to no one, they were ripe for assimilation under Confederation's terms of union with Canada. When Newfoundland joined Canada in 1949, on April Fool's Day, no less, neither of the province's three Indigenous groups, the Mi'kmaq, the Inuit, or the Innu, were invited to join Confederation because of a colonialist policy that saw them as no different from non-Indigenous residents, with no shared history, no important culture, living on land that belonged to no one. They were denied the dignity of their own identity and stranded between two worlds, neither Indian nor white. Thank you for paying attention to this presentation. I hope this has illuminated a hidden aspect of Confederation for you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.